I'd barely stepped into the glass-walled conference room before I saw him. Damian Wolf. Tall. Immaculate. Cool as steel. He stood at the head of the table, flipping through a pitch deck like it owed him an apology. Not a single crease in his charcoal suit. His sleeves are rolled up just enough to reveal strong, veined forearms that somehow made me forget my own name. His tie, midnight blue, was loose in a way that felt intentional. Everything about him was sharp and severe, like a man carved from discipline and cynicism. Everyone else sat stiffly around the glossy black table, eyes either glued to their laptops or subtly avoiding him. They were trying not to breathe too loudly, like one wrong exhale might snap the tension that always seemed to hum when Damien was in the room. And me? I stood there with my heart in my throat, fingers clutched too tightly around the strap of my bag, sweat prickling down my back in spite of the air conditioning. I hadn't even properly sat down, and I was already a walking cliché, the new guy with stars in his eyes, trying not to make a fool of himself. "This is Aiden Rhodes," my HR liaison said cheerfully, motioning to me as if presenting a prize cow in market. "Our new junior designer." And then it happened. Damien looked up, just once. A quick glance. Cold gray eyes flicked across the room and landed on me like a spotlight with no warmth. Measured. Intense. Detached. "Aiden's it," he said, voice deep and low, like thunder under calm skies. I swallowed. "Why, yes," I stammered, instantly hating myself for sounding like a child. His eyes didn't blink, didn't soften. "You've got potential," he said simply, then turned back to the screen without another word. "Don't waste it trying to impress me." That was it. My introduction. My grand entrance into the world of design and creativity and neon-lit success. No handshake. No welcome speech. Just a brutal dose of honesty wrapped in silk and ice. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Ideas were thrown around. Buzzwords ricocheted across the table. Immersive, disruptive, elevated storytelling. All the jargon I'd memorized in school and hoped I could fake well enough in real life. But I couldn't focus. Not really. I kept sneaking glances at him. Damien didn't speak unless it mattered. When he did, people listened like it was law. His critiques were sharp, but never cruel. His approval was subtle. Half a nod, a slight arch of an eyebrow. But it made grown adults sit up straighter in their seats. He was the kind of man who made you want to be better, just by existing. And that terrified me. By the time the meeting ended, I was half convinced I was about to be fired for something I hadn't even done yet. Everyone shuffled out slowly, conversations restarting once the boss wasn't in earshot. I stayed behind a second longer, trying to compose myself before heading to my new desk. I didn't notice he'd stayed too. "You're not what I expected," Damien said behind me. I turned, almost dropping my laptop bag. I'm sorry." He was still at the table, arms crossed over his chest, watching me with an unreadable expression. "You've got a clean eye," he said, nodding toward the small portfolio they'd forwarded him before I started. "Your type work needs finessing, and your color palette's safe. But there's something there." "Thank you," I said, more breath than words. He took a few steps toward me, and I swear my body forgot how to function properly. He wasn't even doing anything, just walking, just existing, but somehow it felt charged, like standing too close to a live wire. "But don't rely on talent alone," he said, his voice lowering slightly. "This industry will eat you alive if you do." I nodded quickly. "I won't." A faint smile ghosted across his lips, too quick to mean anything, and then it was gone. "Get to work," he said simply, and then turned and walked out. And just like that, I was alone. My knees weak, my lungs shallow, my brain struggling to piece together how a man could be so utterly intimidating and captivating at the same time. I made my way to my corner desk, still reeling. My cubicle overlooked the city, tall buildings painted orange by the afternoon sun. And for a moment, I pressed my palm to the glass just to ground myself. This was the job I dreamed of. A prestigious creative agency with clients I used to study in school. And now I was here, under Damian Wolf, creative genius, stone-faced mentor, and, as of approximately 20 minutes ago, the first man to ever make me question if admiration could border on obsession. I told myself it was nothing. Just nerves. Just awe. A crush on the job, not the man. But deep down I knew the truth. The moment he said my name, the moment his eyes locked on mine like a puzzle he didn't have time to solve, I was completely, hopelessly screwed. The office at night felt like a different world. The noise, the buzz, the caffeine-fueled chaos of the day, all of it faded into silence once the sun dipped behind the skyline. Most people had gone home hours ago, their laughter and complaints replaced by the soft hum of computers, the distant sound of street traffic, and the occasional flickering light from an overworked server. And then there was Damien, still here, still perfect. We were the last ones in the office. Again, he sat at his desk across the room, sleeves rolled up, collar open, tie abandoned somewhere hours ago. His concentration was almost aggressive, jaw tight, brow furrowed, his fingers dancing across the tablet with calculated precision. It was like watching someone conduct an invisible symphony, and I found myself staring more often than I probably should have. I told myself it was professional curiosity, respect, admiration, lies. I turned back to my screen and squinted at the mock-up I'd been tweaking for the last 20 minutes. It was good, but good didn't cut it here. Not with Damien. Not with me, so close to impressing him and still a million miles away from figuring him out. You're still not adjusting the kerning properly, came his voice, sudden and close. I flinched slightly, startled by how silently he'd moved across the room. Damien leaned over my chair, one hand resting on the back of it, the other pointing at the headline on my screen. His breath was warm on the side of my neck, subtle but unmistakable. I swallowed hard. My heart thumped like it was trying to break out of my chest. "You always noticed that," I whispered. The words came out thin, fragile, like they'd shatter if I spoke any louder. He didn't move back. "That's my job," he replied, voice low and calm. But it wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. There was a hesitation in his tone, a soft ripple of something unspoken underneath the authority. For the briefest moment, his professionalism cracked. And in that crack, I felt something spark. I turned slightly in my chair, just enough to meet his eyes. Too close. We were too close. His gaze met mine, steady, unreadable, but then for the tiniest second his eyes dipped to my lips. Just for a moment. Just long enough to steal my breath. And then it was gone. "You should go home, Aiden," he said, standing straight again. His voice had shifted. Professional. Distant. The crack sealed. "It's late." "Then why are you still here?" I asked before I could stop myself. The words came out sharper than I meant, heavy with the questions I was too afraid to voice. "Why do you stay behind every night? Why do you help me more than the others? Why do you look at me like you're trying not to?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked toward the large windows, the city lights bleeding into the glass. "Some habits die hard," he said finally, cryptic and vague. He turned and walked away, each step echoing in the quiet, louder than the silence he left behind. I sat frozen for a few seconds, heart pounding in my ears. My fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard. I couldn't focus, not with the ghost of his breath still on my skin. Eventually, I shut my laptop. I found him in the break room, standing by the coffee machine like it might give him something stronger if he stared hard enough. His jacket was draped over the back of a nearby chair, and the top buttons of his shirt were undone. He looked tired, but not in the way most people did. Damien's exhaustion was quieter, buried, like he carried it in his bones. "I thought you said I should go home," I said softly. He didn't turn. "I did. Doesn't mean you'll listen." I took a few steps in, the air charged between us. "You always stay late," I said, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. "You don't have to." He gave a dry laugh. "Neither do you." "I like the quiet," I admitted. "Easier to think." He finally looked at me. "And what are you thinking about, Aiden?" God, that voice, that question. I opened my mouth, closed again, because what was I thinking about? Him, his hands, his mouth, the way his eyes darkened when he was focused, the way my entire body reacted when he stood too close. "I don't know," I lied, pouring the coffee. "Design stuff." He didn't push. He never did. Damien knew how to ask questions that cut without drawing blood, and how to leave silence that said more than words ever could. "You're not like the others," he said suddenly, voice quieter now. I looked up. "What do you mean?" "You're stubborn. In a good way. You care too much. About the work. About everything." I blinked. That almost sounded like a compliment. "Is that a bad thing?" He looked down at his cup. "Not always. But it makes things harder. Holding back makes things harder, too," I said without thinking. His eyes snapped up, something flickering behind them. And then it was there again, that tension, that heat, that space between us charged with all the things we hadn't said. I wanted to close the gap, to cross the line, to see what would happen if I stopped being afraid of the fallout. But before I could move, Damien stepped back. "Get some rest," he said, already walking toward the door. I watched him go again. And this time, the silence didn't just echo, it hurt. Because I was starting to realize something I hadn't wanted to admit. It wasn't just admiration. It wasn't just a crush. I was falling for him. And that fall, it was starting to feel dangerously deep. Then one day it happened. It was supposed to be harmless. Just a Saturday shoot. Just helping him set up because everyone else bailed. Just brushing fingers when he passed me the lens. Just standing too close because the studio was cold. But when his hand touched mine, lingered, something snapped between us. We both felt it. He dropped the camera, and it hit the floor with a soft thud. Neither of us looked at it. He stared at me like he was battling something internal, something heavy. "Aiden," he warned, voice low, dangerous. "Don't," I whispered, stepping closer. "Don't pretend you don't feel it too." His jaw clenched. "You don't know what you're asking for. You don't know what I'd give to have it," I said. That was all it took. His hands were on me, desperate, furious, tender. My back hit the wall, and our mouths crashed like a dam breaking. Every repressed second we'd buried in restraint came flooding out. It wasn't just passion. It was months of wanting, needing, aching, and the relief of no longer pretending we didn't. He was gone when I woke up. The sheets beside me were cold. His coffee cup sat untouched on the counter. At first, I thought maybe I dreamt it, but my lips were still swollen. My body still ached in all the right places. It had happened, and now it was like he was erasing it. I found him at his desk later, looking every bit the polished, unreadable man I met on day one. "We can't do that again," he said before I could even speak. "Why?" "Because it's against the rules." I shot back, the sting of rejection sharp in my chest. "Because it's dangerous, Aiden. For both of us." He didn't look up, wouldn't meet my eyes. And in that moment, I hated him a little, for making me feel like I was something to be ashamed of, for acting like last night hadn't mattered. But I also saw it, the crack in his composure, the regret, the longing he couldn't quite hide. He was scared. So was I. But love doesn't wait for perfect timing. I didn't plan to confess it. Not then. But when I saw him standing on a rooftop during a stormy pitch night, tie loose, hair a mess, his guard down, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "You taught me how to believe in myself," I said quietly. "You made me better." "Aiden," he started, but I didn't let him finish. But you also made me fall for you. And I'm done pretending I didn't. His eyes closed like he was in pain. You're too young to know if this is real. Don't you dare decide what I feel, I said, stepping into his space, heart pounding. You're scared. Fine, but I'm not. And for once, he didn't run. He touched my face like he was memorizing it, like he'd been starving for it. And when he kissed me, slow, deep, trembling, it wasn't like that night in the studio. This wasn't desire. It was love. Terrifying, beautiful, undeniable love. You were never just my student, he whispered. I've been falling for you since the day you walked into that room and looked at me like I wasn't untouchable. I smiled through the tears. You never were. I love you so much, Damien, I said, and with that he kissed me and ended with a loving and deep hug.